Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable Behavior Explained. Hi there. Thanks so much for tuning into Adaptable today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the emotions and mental health and what we can learn from the movie Inside Out. After watching Inside Out 2, I just knew I had to do a show about this. And so I think that there's so much we can learn and we can gain. And I couldn't be happier with Disney for putting this out.
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
Did you guys pick up on that?
Sure did.
Something's wrong.
We're going to find out what's happening.
And not just part one, but part two, because it continues to discuss the evolution of how our emotions and our mental health just are such key factors in the behavior of us as human beings. And they do a brilliant job with their writing, having two renowned psychologists on their writing staff to make sure they get it right. And I was so excited about what the movie has done, not just for society, but for as a mental health practice. We are able to ask our clients to watch the movies to help them prepare for starting the therapeutic process and the therapeutic experience. And so I thought I'd bring to you some of the things that I've gleaned from watching the show and maybe help you to find more information about your own emotional experience and your own mental health. This is so important to me because like I said, we use it every day, but emotions are the building blocks of everything that we've ever done. And it guides and predicts everything that we do as far as our behavior goes. And this movie does such a brilliant job of discussing that.
Riley, I do not like this new attitude.
Oh, I'll show you attitude, old man.
No, breathe.
What is your problem? Just leave me alone.
Sir, reporting high levels of sass.
And so for those of you who haven't seen Inside Out, I highly, highly recommend it. But for those who haven't and are interested in this anyway, basically Inside Out, for like I said, for those who are not familiar, was a movie in 2015. It was animated by Pixar, and it takes us viewers inside the mind of an 11-year-old girl named Riley. The story follows her emotions: joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust.
I'm joy. This is sadness. That's anger.
What?
This is disgust. And that's fear. We're Riley's emotions.
As they navigate the challenges of her family's move from Minnesota to San Francisco. Each emotion is personified, and it operates from headquarters, the control center in Riley's mind. The plot centers on joy and sadness accidentally getting lost in the vast world of Riley's memories, leaving anger, fear, and disgust to manage Riley's emotional state. As joy and sadness journey back to headquarters, they learn the importance of all emotions working together to help Riley cope with her new life. The film beautifully illustrates how emotions are essential for our personal growth and our mental health, and it emphasizes the value of embracing all of our feelings, not just the positive ones, but the protective ones. And so the role of emotions are so important. And in this movie, the emotions joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust are depicted in this movie. And I want to discuss a little bit more in depth from Jaak Panksepp's view of emotions, as well as Brene Brown and her view of emotions. I have another episode on emotions, but this one is specifically related to the Inside Out movie. Sadness is part of the panic and grief system, which is crucial for social bonding and attachment.
When life gets you down, that's when sadness takes over. This is sadness. With a caring touch and a kind heart, sadness leaps into action to let you...
It signals our need for comfort and support, and it helps people to seek connection during distress. And so when we don't allow for our sadness to be shown, we end up dealing with emotional experiences in being alone. And sadness is a natural response to loss and disappointment. It allows us to process our grief and find meaning in our experiences. The sadder we are when it comes to loss is really just the sign of how important something was that we don't have anymore. And so embracing the sadness can lead to greater resilience and ultimately empathy. An example that I want to share from the movie Inside Out, where sadness is the hero of the story, because she cultivates connection, is in the scene with Bing Bong. During their adventure, Bing Bong becomes really upset after realizing he's losing his place in Riley's life. She matures and she grows, and so her imaginary life isn't as prominent. And so while Joy tries to distract him from his feelings, which oftentimes we do in our lives, we try to get busy doing or paint a brush of silver lining it and try to find the joy in things, things tend to perpetuate. And so sadness takes a different approach. She listens to Bing Bong, allowing him to express his emotions and to cry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time, we had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness!
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
And this act of empathy helps Bing Bong to feel understood and supported and allows him to move through the sadness that he feels for no longer being the same place in Riley's life as he once was. And it ultimately helps him to kind of grieve the moment. And you see him kind of, and then he's able to move on. And so this moment really highlights how sadness can foster such a deep connection by embracing our emotions rather than avoiding them. Emotions only stay when we try to push them away. And this is a powerful reminder of the importance of all of our emotions in building meaningful relationships. The next emotion that I want to discuss is anger. I absolutely love anger.
When things go wrong, anger is there. This is anger. He will make sure the world knows anger is in control.
In this movie, I think it does such a beautiful job of illustrating the importance. And so many people are really phobic to the emotion anger. And anger is associated with the rage system, and it's activated when a person faces frustration or threats. And it can motivate action to overcome obstacles and assert boundaries. So I think it's important to recognize that anger helps to keep us safe, and it gives us the enough power and energy to do something to protect ourselves and others from harm if we're in harm's way. And of course, we don't want to show our anger when it's a really intense, elevated state, because our listener will then be defensive and they won't be in a place where they can listen and hear. So we need to discharge our anger in a healthy way before we address people, but it's also a powerful emotion that leans itself towards survival. And an example that I love in the movie is when sadness and joy are trapped outside the window, and disgust incites anger to give him energy to cut through the window and to save them. And she purposefully ticks him off so that the power from the fire can come out of his head, and she picks him up and uses him to then, of course, save joy and sadness as they're trapped outside.
That worked.
Well, what would you do if you're so smart?
I'd tell you, but you're too dumb to understand.
What?
Of course your tiny brain is confused. Guess I'll just have to dumb it down to your level. Sorry I don't speak moron as well as you, but let me try.
Anger often masks deeper emotions like fear or hurt, and understanding and expressing anger constructively, it can lead to healthier relationships and ultimately personal growth. And so I think that people who are phobic of anger need to understand that it really serves a purpose, and it is the only emotion powerful enough that gives us the adrenaline we need to save ourselves and others from harm. The next emotion that I'd like to discuss is disgust.
Sometimes life gets a little dirty. That's when disgust takes over. This is disgust. Whether advising on your social life or on life's little messes, disgust is there to, well...
It's linked to the brain's protective mechanisms, which helps people avoid harmful substances and situations. You think about the smell of sour food and how quickly we avert from that because it'll make us sick. It plays a role in maintaining hygiene and social norms as well. So something from the movie that I really like is Riley behaves in a certain way at school, and disgust is trying to manage her behaviors in a social way so that she can make friends, and is really almost anxious about her choices so that she doesn't do anything that's off-putting.
Did you see Okay, we got a group of cool girls at 2 o'clock.
How do you know?
Double ears pierced, infinity scarf.
Whoa, is she wearing eyeshadow?
Yeah, we want to be friends with them.
Let's go talk to them.
Are you kidding? We're not talking to them. We want them to like us.
Oh, yeah. Wait, what?
And so disgust can also reflect moral and ethical boundaries. It helps us to navigate social interactions and maintain personal integrity over our behaviors. And so we want to listen to disgust. If it's telling us something, it's probably noteworthy and necessary. Next, we're going to talk about fear.
When the unexpected is staring you in the face, fear is there to keep you safe. With speed and wisdom, fear assesses the situation and settles your nerves.
Fear is part of the fear system, essential for us to survive in our limbic system. It triggers the flight or fight response, and it prepares our body to respond to danger. It can be paralyzing, but it's also a powerful motivator. When we recognize and manage our fear, it can lead to courage and vulnerability, and it fosters deeper connections, because when we can show up not just with fear, but while being brave at the same time, which I think that people who are engaging in things that are risky or sometimes new, there's always fear. And right beside it, if we follow through, is the bravery that we need to overcome those fears. And in the movie, I just love fear because it's so hilarious to me how, he's running through trying to make sure that Riley doesn't get hurt. But when Riley's about to try out for the hockey team in her new school, fear takes over the control panel, imagines all the possible ways that things could go wrong, from falling on the ice to being laughed at by her new classmates. And this scene is great because it highlights how fear's vigilance helps Riley prepare for potential dangers and avoid risky situations.
Wait, what?
Almost finished with the potential disasters. Worst scenario is either quicksand, spontaneous combustion, or getting called on by the teacher. So as long as none of those happen...
Okay, everybody. We have a new student in class today.
Are you kidding me? Out of the gates? This is not happening!
Riley?
The constant worry and caution might seem excessive at times, but it does serve an important purpose in protecting Riley from harm and helping her to navigate new and uncertain environments. And so we want to respect and honor fear's role in our lives, so long as it doesn't take over and become too big. And the next one we're going to talk about is joy. And when I ask my patients, who's your favorite? Oftentimes people say joy is my favorite. And when I say who's your least favorite, they say sadness when it comes to this movie. And I make them rewatch the movie. And I say, I want you to watch it with the lens that sadness is the hero. And I want you to watch how you experience yourself in relationship to joy's action, or to sadness's actions and behaviors. And that gives me a lot of information about how they understand their need to push sadness away and their propensity to really want to avoid feelings of sadness. And then we just talk about how they notice that in their body. But joy, the main character.
When everything in your life is going your way, that's when joy takes control. This is joy. With an unstoppable spirit and unbeatable energy.
Joy is related to the seeking and the play systems, and it promotes exploration, creativity, social bonding, enhances overall well-being and resilience. And joy is profound for the sense of connection and fulfillment. Jaak Panksepp talks about all things that are enjoyed are better enjoyed in connection and with somebody. And so joy often arises from moments of authenticity, gratitude, enriches our lives, and of course relationships, when we can share in something that is special that we can experience with someone else. So of course there's many, many moments of joy's influence on Riley's emotions, but she's always really striving to keep Riley happy. And we see an example of joy's importance when she helps Riley recall her happy memories to lift her spirits. And one memorable scene is when joy and sadness work together and they're trying to retrieve a core memory that had turned out sad. And then joy realizes then that sadness is essential for Riley to process her emotions and to find true happiness, not just surface level.
Sadness. Mom and Dad, the team, they came to help because of sadness.
And so this is one of the most pivotal moments as it shows her growth, Joy's growth, and also her understanding that happiness isn't just about constant positivity, but it's also about embracing and integrating the other emotions. And so you see the evolution of Joy's character when at the beginning she's like, sadness, stay over here in the circle. We need you to just, stop touching everything and stop ruining everything. And she doesn't know what's come over her. And she's so confused as to why she needs to try to go to the control panel and take over. And it's because Riley really does need to exhibit the sadness that she's experiencing as a result of having to go through this really painful move. And I like to talk to my clients about when you think about Riley's life. She originally has a pretty for our viewers that aren't too young, kind of a Leave It to Beaver life. She's got all of her needs met from the way we see the story. She's loved, she's nurtured, she's got connections, social supports, and then it all comes crashing down when she has to move. And when you think about that move as something that really takes Riley to a place of a fall down moment, and you think about things that have happened in your life, it just goes to show our resilience, because something like a move and having to have new friends in a new place is so detrimental for her emotional well-being. And when we reflect on our own emotional experiences, I think it's important to note just how resilient we are as humans, because most of us has gone through way more than just a move. And so I love that this movie helps us to recognize that emotional balance, friendships, connection, and imagination and grief and protection are all really essential to the human experience. And so I want to talk a little bit about the other things in the movie that are really important to note. We have the control center or headquarters, and this is where we're going to understand the brain.
The moving van won't be here until Thursday.
You're kidding.
I signed a contract.
The van is lost.
You said it would be here yesterday.
And I know that's what I said. That's what they told me.
They're stressed out. They're stressed out. What are we going to do?
What is their problem? I've got a great idea!
How the control center is really brain life function, and a few parts of the brain, just in brief, about what the control center in the movie is trying to emulate. So we've got the cerebrum. This is the big part of our brain that helps us think and move and act and feel. And it's divided into 3 different areas that handle our specific tasks, like seeing, hearing, and speaking. And then we've got the hypothalamus. It's a smaller part that keeps our body in balance by controlling things like hunger, thirst, and temperature, our basic needs to keep the resilience that we need. And then we have our brainstem, and this is the part that keeps you alive by controlling basic functions like breathing, heart rate, and then, of course, the limbic system, which is the emotional center that that helps you to feel and remember things. And it includes parts like the amygdala, which is our body's alarm system, and it handles emotions, and then the hippocampus, which handles memories. And so this movie primarily talks about the limbic system and how all of that works. But we also have the prefrontal cortex, and you see this go offline with Riley, which is the decision maker that helps us plan and solve our problems and control our behavior. And of course, these parts all work together to help us think, feel, and stay alive and be in connection with people. And they make sure our body responds correctly to what's happening around us. And ultimately, when we've been traumatized, like we see in the movie with her move, she's got emotions that take over her prefrontal cortex and end up driving her towards behaviors that aren't really in line with her values. And you can see that it just doesn't take that much to derail her choices. So I love that how this movie illustrates, in a normative way, when something bad happens to us, how we can really get thrown off track from what's in line with how we are and who we really are. And so now we're going to talk about memory and core memories.
Anyway, these are Riley's memories, and they're mostly happy, you'll notice, not to brag. But the really important ones are over here. I don't want to get too technical, but these are called core memories.
So Riley's memories shape her personality and emotions in many ways. The core memories are these important memories that end up creating our islands of personality, like Family Island, Hockey Island, which defines who Riley is, and it contributes to her identity.
And each core memory powers a different aspect of Riley's personality, like Hockey Island.
Goofball Island is my personal favorite.
So these hallmark moments that happen in her life end up fortifying her identity and her personality and things that really matter to her. And they represent key parts of her identity. And so when core memories are lost or changed, these islands end up crumbling. And it shows how vital memories are to our personality. And as an EMDR therapist, when people come in with symptoms, we address the way memory is held maladaptively encoded in our bodies, and we help to resolve the way they're held by allowing us to fully feel an emotional experience. And so when you think about Riley and how she's really struggling after, for example, like the hockey game, she was really sad, and then you see the sadness bring her parents in to support her, and then you also see her team really support her. But how things can get stuck really can affect the way that we think and act. And it's important that we recognize the emotional responses that are predicated by the way memory shows up in our body. And so you see in the movie, memories influence how Riley reacts to new situations, how happy memories help her stay positive, while sad memories make her more empathetic. But overall, memories help her to understand and navigate her emotions and ultimately shape her into who she is. So when you think about managing our emotions, we want to acknowledge all of our emotions. And this movie does a great job of showing us when we try to shove things away, it just gets noisier. And when she's allowed to show the anger and when she's allowed to show the sadness, that's when she starts to feel better. So all of expressing all of these emotions really helps us to move through painful experiences and come to the other side. We want to talk about our emotions with someone that we trust so that we can process them effectively. If we are not finding ourselves resolving emotional experiences, highly recommend finding yourself a therapist, primarily a bottom-up therapist like an EMDR therapist. So you can work with memory, you can work with the emotional experience that's not serving you in a way that's helpful. We use positive memories and we recall happy moments to boost our mood during hard times. And then ultimately, we can understand that it's okay to feel a mix of emotions and embrace change and be flexible and adaptive, especially during significant life changes. And so I think that this movie helps us to normalize that there's going to be an array of emotional experiences when it comes to a big life change. And that if we try to expect that we won't have an array of emotions when we're going through something, that's really unfair for ourselves, and we need to give ourselves more grace. So I want to give you some strategies for emotional balance and mental wellness if you are going through a time of difficulty. I mean, in pretty much every podcast on mental health, you probably hear something about mindfulness, but it just couldn't be more important and more true. If we can engage in mindfulness, specifically a meditation or a formal meditation practice to stay present and reduce stress, we're then ultimately just dealing with right now. We're not dealing with things in the past. We're not dealing with things that are in our future, which is really anxiety. We want to try to stay active. Regular physical activity can improve our mood and reduce our anxiety and help us to deal with stressors. It's a way to off-gas some of the energy that comes with life changes. Of course, doing hard things alone is never a good idea, so we want to build social connections, maintain strong relationships for emotional support, and most importantly, when you're in a hard time, this is not the time to shut down and go away from your supports. It's the time to reach out to the people who've built some trust in your life. Oftentimes, we try to take on more than we can, and we don't set appropriate boundaries, so we want to make sure we're setting boundaries, learning to say no, taking time for ourselves and self-care so that we can avoid burnout and ultimately running out of space. We want to engage in creative activities. We want to use play and imagination, like journaling or art, to express or process our emotions and ultimately keep ourselves a little bit more balanced. So I hope that you found this helpful. I just love the movie. If you haven't seen Inside Out, it's so great. And I will be bringing Inside Out 2 to you shortly as well, because there's just a variety of additional wonderful concepts that we glean from Inside Out 2. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you found it helpful and useful, and that you can take some of the information from the movie and apply it to personal experiences in your own life, and ultimately give yourself some grace if you're not managing a hard situation the way you'd like to. seeing that even Riley, with only something as small as a move, how much that derails her life, and how we can have compassion for her in the movie for navigating this hard time, and we're not judging her. So let's have some grace for ourselves. So thank you so much for tuning in to this show. Until we meet again, don't forget to lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.